Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, brought to you as always by the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as DraftKings. Make sure you use promo code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, as well as DraftKings Daily Fantasy for great odds and great opportunities, thanks to DraftKings and the Hockey Podcast Network. Well, if you're tuning into the podcast version, you just heard us talk about the reaction of the Seattle Kraken expansion draft, which ended at approximately 2 p.m., even though the show didn't start until 8 p.m. But we do have our shout-outs and call-outs, and I feel like one of these is going to continue to be on the expansion draft pass. But, Horwat, what is your shout-out? Let's get that out of the way first, considering I know they're both going to be – the call-outs are going to be probably the same.
Yeah, no, we're jumping right into it, clearly. And before we even dig in to our call-outs, let's just, show a little dark side of Hollywood. We're recording this before the actual draft. For all we know, everything could have been a lie. But as it stands right now, we're still sure everything will stay the same. But to the shout-outs, and then we can get into everything. I'm shouting out the Bryson, DeChambeau, and Brooks Koepka rivalry in the PGA because golf is interesting. I'm telling you, it's interesting even without this rivalry. It is more than just an on-the-course rivalry. Just watching them throw jabs at each other is hysterical. And I, for one, personally, am just not a Bryson DeChambeau guy. If anyone watched me tweet during the which one was that? The Open? The U.S. Open? Whichever one, Bryson hit it next to the box of Stella. I don't remember which one that was, but I was tweeting about him and Rory McIlroy having downfalls, and I loved it. But watching him and Brooks Koepka just toss jabs at each other, it's awesome. The big one that sparked this for my shout out was Bryson not being happy with his driver, and the company that sponsors his driver responded saying, hit the fairway, basically, which is good for them because, yeah, Bryson can hit the ball a mile. Cool. Hit the fairway. That's kind of why you lose. Mm-hmm. And then Brooks Koepka immediately following that up with hit good drives today. I like my driver. Just small things. It's incredible stuff. And they take it to Twitter sometimes. They're funny guys, honestly. Yeah, I'm not a Bryson guy, but this is a cool rivalry. And again, it brings eyes to the sport that is admittedly kind of hard to watch sometimes.
There was a while there that the question was, how is the PGA going to get back to as watchable as it was in the prime years of Tiger Woods? Because Tiger Woods is obviously still that draw whenever he gets back from all of his injuries sustained in the accident.
If he does.
Yeah. But a couple years ago, the question was, how can they get eyes on the sport? Obviously, these, quote, the match things have gotten a lot of eyes on the sport of golf. But I think this is something natural for the PGA, this rivalry between Koepka and DeChambeau. For a while there, people were saying, oh, Rory McIlroy will bring fans. For a while there, people were saying Jordan Spieth will bring fans. And yeah, they do bring some in small quantities. But a rivalry like this, I mean, Brooks Koepka is an absolute animal. Even with surgery on his knee and having a rough season, he is still one of the most fun golfers to watch. And then personality-wise, the fight between DeChambeau and Koepka is what's making the PGA much more watchable this year. And honestly, it's what the PGA needed. It might not have known it needed it, but it's what it needed. Also, Brooks Koepka, notably out of Champion Lakes Golf Club in, Ligonier, Pennsylvania, my grandfather's old stomping grounds there, with Dick Groat, former Pittsburgh Pirate, also in that clubhouse. So definitely somebody that I'm going to be pulling for in Koepka, not as much as I'm going to be pulling for DeChambeau, because I also don't really like DeChambeau all that much. But I think it's good for the sport.
He's a bit of a hothead. I will say he himself can bring eyes to the game because in most sports, people want to come see the big things. I mean, people want to see more home runs in baseball, more goals in hockey, more slam dunks and three-pointers in basketball. He hits the ball far, and that's what we want to see in golf. Granted, golf is generally a boring sport if you're not playing it. I love golf to death, but I cannot sit and watch it every weekend. I can't. I'll watch the Saturday and the Sundays. of the majors or the fun tournaments. That's what makes the Waste Management one in Arizona, that 16th hole par 3, incredible.
That's always Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah, the stadium setting, literally a stadium. The entire hole is surrounded by, I forget how many seats. However many seats it is, and they make noise the entire time. That's awesome stuff. But yeah, no, if you're not into golf, it's really hard to watch, and I get it. But watching a guy hit a ball 300 yards, that's awesome stuff. So he's a guy that, you can rally around and use to bring in a new crowd, because that's the fun part of the sport.
And it'll be fun to see where this rivalry goes and how the PGA decides to market it, and see what they do next year once we see how it matures in this rivalry stage. But definitely a good shout out there. We want to see more of DeChambeau versus Koepka, but I want to bring it back to hockey here for my shout out. And obviously, to me, honestly, the biggest story of the week. I know the Seattle expansion draft's going on. I know the NHL entry draft is going on, but at the beginning of the week, I think the biggest, most important story for the NHL of the week is Luke Prokop. He became the first active NHL affiliated player to come out as gay. He plays in the Nashville Predators organization for the Calgary Hitmen right now of the WHL. And what I loved about all of this, obviously a very brave thing on his part to do, not knowing what the response could be from the media, could be from the fan bases. The media and the NHL itself, I think, handled this extremely well. And I hope that he is happy with the way that everything came out. I know he mentioned that it's been a great weight lifted off his shoulders, that it was really hard for him last season. So I'm very happy that that has come out in the way that it seems very good. There's always going to be people that are going to say the wrong things as far as commenters on social media. And honestly, I think the NHL went back at a lot of them, which is something that we don't see very often from the NHL. And I really loved seeing that. So obviously, shout out to Luke Prokop for coming out as gay, for doing something very brave, and also a shout out to the league, because they were able to have a really good response. And there's sometimes that you can be scared about what response you're going to get from the NHL, but this time a tremendously fantastic response from the league, from the players of the Nashville Predators, from the players across the league. It was just a very good story that realistically it's not a story. It's about inclusivity in the game. And that's what we want as fans of the game, as people that love the game. We want everyone to feel welcome in this culture. And that was just a fantastic moment whenever we saw this all come out and all of the stuff that resulted in it.
Yeah, that's always incredible stuff. People being able to be themselves like that and open up to the world. It's not an easy thing to do at any point. It's hard enough. I mean, I don't know too much about the whole situation because I haven't looked too deep into it, but I saw it happen. That's awesome stuff. And I didn't read comments because you just know what that's going to be.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard still in this day and age to do that kind of thing. It's hard coming out to your family, let alone the world. So, yeah, it's just awesome stuff for him. It's good to see the NHL and the players and a lot of fans generally, really, in full support of this. I mean, there's no reason why, because he's the way he is. I don't even know how to put it correctly, because this is still such a new topic for so many people. I mean,
especially in professional sports.
Yeah. But the fact that he's able to come out like that and be proud and be himself and not have to hide anything, it's awesome stuff. And hopefully it opens the door, obviously, for more people who might feel like they're trapped in a way, to open up and be themselves. The world is more accepting than people give it credit for, but there will always be the negative side to it. So again, shout out to him. It's big stuff no matter what. And again, maybe it just opens the door for more people.
And the dude is a defensive defenseman, like I said, for the Calgary Hitmen. Maybe we'll see him in Nashville here in a couple of years, and possibly for the Predators, who are wow, I can't speak today, but an organization that prides itself on its defensemen the last half a decade. So we'll see, and obviously follow along with his career in right now the WHL. But let's get to our call-outs, Horwat, because that is one that very few times do we have one that we both unanimously want to talk about as both of our call-outs, and that's what we have this week. I'll let you start and take it over.
It is going to be more of a conversational call-out this week, because it has to do with, there's a lot of people involved, but we'll title it the way everyone will understand it, the Frank Seravalli situation, where The NHL has this, like I said, we're recording this before the draft actually happens, but that doesn't make a difference whenever we record this at 3:30 and at 1:30, 29 of the 30 players have been leaked or reported upon that they're going to be taken by Seattle. I was originally going to shout Frank Seravalli out myself because he has done work this week. He's done impressive digging and impressive news story stuff throughout the week. And don't get me wrong, that can't be taken away from him. But everything that happened Wednesday morning onward is kind of what we're here to discuss, because it sucked all of the fun, all of the suspense, and all of the surprises out of what is supposed to be the selection of a new team and the big event that the NHL is putting on this summer. Hey, we have a new team. This Seattle franchise, brand new. They don't have any players yet, so tune in to watch and see who they pick. Well, all they have to do is look at Twitter, and they can find it. It's there. It's 3:48 in the afternoon, Eastern time, and the whole team's selected, basically, except for the Detroit Red Wings, who are they going to take? Troy Stetcher? Are they going to take – who else is even unprotected over there? I don't know. There's just nothing to tune in for anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe some trades. Apparently, Colin Blackwell might be staying in New York, and Giordano's going. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see, but that's something you can do on Twitter. I've seen people say this is a cool thing. It's kind of like free agency. No, it's not. This is nothing like free agency. This is literally players getting taken from another team. Free agency it's okay when the reporters do it there because that's how we learn about it. That's just the way it is. And I know you have a lot more to say on it as well, so I'll throw it up to you and we'll just conversate about this.
Well, we talked about Luke Prokop playing for the Calgary Hitmen. I'm sure the NHL and ESPN are going to be looking to hire actual hitmen to go out and attack Frank Seravalli after literally breaking basically every selection of the Seattle Kraken at least 5 hours ahead of this event. And that's why, to me, it is so much different than the free agency. It's so much different than the trade deadline. This was supposed to be a spectacle. This was supposed to be a grandiose show to welcome to the Seattle Kraken and to also kick off this new TV deal with ESPN. And I know that there's been some people that says, serves ESPN right. They put it on ESPN too. Listen, in the United States, if you're not realizing the fact that ESPN2 is a higher value channel than NBC Sports ever was, then you realize that this is already the ESPN making things right for the NHL. And obviously, to go along with that also, the NHL will have their schedule release on SportsCenter at 6 o'clock tonight on Thursday, the day after we had the expansion draft and the day before the NHL entry draft. So clearly, ESPN is taking a lot of interest in getting these rights, and they're starting off pretty well. I haven't at this point seen what they did with the Kraken expansion draft, as Horwat has mentioned. But now there's going to be so much less viewership because people already know. The people that don't want to watch and see what ESPN did are just going to look at the roster and say, okay, I have better things to do with my time on a Wednesday night, like tune into the live stream of Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast. But at the same time, I understand getting the scoop. We're both journalists, ex-journalists, students, current journalists, that we understand what it means to get the scoop. We understand why people want to get the scoop. But this 29 out of 30 picks before even 4 p.m. Eastern time, that is unbelievably ridiculous. It takes all of the fun out of what was supposed to be a very exciting, all eyes on event. And honestly, I understand Frank Seravalli doing his job. I get that to an extent, but at the same time, man, it just sucked the fun out of Wednesday night, didn't it?
It really did. And like you mentioned, we understand that you get the scoop and you want to put it out there. You kind of want to have your name on it, but and that's just the way it is. That's the way the media industry is. You're first. You got it. You report it. You do whatever. But when it's taking the fun out of a big event, like this is a big deal for the NHL, and they just lost the casual viewership, I think, because now they've already seen it. This tweet is hysterical, and I have one more tweet to shout out whenever we finish talking about this picture too. Yeah,
no problem. Obviously, this tweet came out. You sent it to me earlier in the day. It came out at 12:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Frank Seravalli, 11 breaks per hour, 25 ignored texts from Gary Bettman. and zero fucks given about the ESPN Draft podcast. You sent it to me. I was in the middle of door dashing, which I do want to talk about briefly a little bit later, but I saw this and I just cracked up.
Yeah, it's very much the way it is, and I appreciate that we're following Frank Seravalli because, hey, now we know who's on Seattle.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Frank Seravalli does great work all the time. I mean, Daily Face-Off, I'm actually a little surprised that they write stories. It's not a site I usually think of whenever I'm looking for hockey stories and news breaking stuff. But hey, you know what? He did his work. He got somewhere he's confident in, and he's, making headlines now. But so he straight up just kind of announced the names. I will say he did it in a weird way where there was a couple where it was like the Montreal one. The Kraken are not going to select Carey Price.
Yeah.
But it could be, and lists the name who I don't even remember now. Caden Fleury?
Cale Fleury.
There you go. There's a name. But I do want to shout out one tweet that I found whenever I was flipping through all the nonsense that was happening. Mm-hmm. It was by Scott Powers, who's the Chicago Blackhawks writer for The Athletic. He said, "It sounds like the Kraken really went off board with their pick from the Blackhawks. Don't have a specific name yet, but I'm told it's not someone you'd expect." That's the way to do it. If you have the names, that's the way to do it. Build the suspense. Say, hey, this is a shocker. Montreal could have been a perfect one. Hey, because either way, hey, Montreal's going to have a interesting name taken. Well, now you've built a suspense. Is it Carey Price? Is it someone else? We don't know. We have to tune in to see. When you straight up say the names, well, there's no point in tuning in now. We know who it is. It's not Carey Price. Even if he said it's not Carey Price, left it at that. All right, we roll along. Who's it going to be? Now we kind of have to watch. Is it Paul Byron? Is it going to be Caden Fleury? Kale? I'm never going to get his name right. So
there's Caden Primo in that organization.
That's why.
And there's the tweet you're alluding to from Scott Powers.
Yes. And that's the way to do it. Just say, hey, we got intel that there's going to be some interesting stuff from these certain teams, or big names not being taken, or big names are being taken. Don't list the names directly, because then, like I said, I have a notebook here that has 29 of the 30 teams taken. And hey, for what it's worth, Jared McCann, an easy pick. Brandon Tanev, man, you hate to see it, but I'm sure the Brandon Tanev reaction, I'm sure you heard already, actually. If you're listening to this part of the episode, you've already heard it, so I won't go any further.
It's a weird organization of recording an episode.
Yes.
But for sure, we definitely touched on that in the first segment. And you know what? When this all came out, I was going to boycott social media for the day, which is not a hard thing to do, but it's just inevitable with something this big. I'm getting text messages from you, from Doug, from everybody else that's our friends, just talking about it. Obviously, the Hockey Podcast Network Slack channel is bumping today. Yep. So it's inevitable that you're going to see some of these leaks. And I saw the Pittsburgh Penguins one unwillingly. It popped up on my phone when I was looking at my phone. So I had no idea that it was going to come up there. So it's not something that you can easily avoid, especially if you're somebody that's trying to cover the sport in any way, shape, or form. And initially, I was very upset at Frank Seravalli. And I still, at some point, you do realize it is his job to do that. And he is trying to make money in a profession. So I understand what he's doing. I think I lay more blame on his sources because they then just don't care about the league, or about ESPN, or about, honestly, the Seattle Kraken. I'm sure the Kraken would have loved to have some great surprises come out of this, and they're not going to have any. And the excitement around their team just went down at least like 10%, I think, nationwide. So I blame the sources more than I blame Frank Seravalli, because he is just doing his job. But on the sources side, I mean, maybe, I know the NHL doesn't care to that extent, but maybe levy some fines against anybody that they find leaking stuff like this when it's as high profile as an expansion draft. The last one we're going to see for a long time, I would imagine.
I would imagine that too. Going past 32 teams is difficult. Yeah. It's all very much. Also, I mean, the free agent signings I get, like announcing, hey, Jamie Alexiak, Adam Larson might be good. That's fine. That's literally a free agent signing that we see all the time. The Chris Drieger thing. Chris Drieger? See, I'm messing up names.
Yep. Chris Drieger. You're good. Keep going.
I get that. Those are your free agent signings. That's different. They are allowed to talk to free agents. They're not like those are the ones you're going to announce like that. By the way, I called the Alexiak thing, and that was I felt like that may not have been the pick, but hey, there we go. I got one.
Yeah.
But just those are the only ones that make sense to me. Again, I get you got to do what you got to do, but I don't know. I shouldn't be sitting here just before 4 looking at 29 of the 30 names and also kind of realizing this team's not that great yet.
See,
they'll have room, and another thing too, we're all finding out about this because they're gonna have so much room in the cap. They can do basically whatever they want with free agency.
Free agency starts in a week. They could be names on some of these big players that are free agents. There are also the weird thing about our recording schedule right now is there's also some side deals that are going to come out tonight. So the Kraken might get extra draft picks, extra players that we don't know about. I mean, it might be Jake Voracek from Philly that gets thrown in because Philly's trying to get rid of him. You never know what's going to happen at this current point that we're recording this. But if you look at the team right now, they definitely leaned prospect heavy on what we're seeing on paper right now of what's leaked.
They left out Tarasenko, left out Price, left out Max Domi,
left out Alex Ovechkin.
As funny as that would have been, Mass Chaos would have been that would have just been fun.
They wake up and choose violence,
which they should have done. Also, think about the time difference here. The roster was due at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, 7 a.m. Pacific.
7 a.m. over there. These names were coming out. What I had the last name pulled in at 1:30. It's not even lunchtime over there yet.
Yeah, and they already know their entire team.
Yeah, that's brutal.
I hope Kevin Weeks is getting a really good per diem because all those shorts he just shot meant absolutely nothing.
Oh, the fish throw video. If you haven't seen it.
That's why I'm excited. That's why I was excited to watch it because I knew they were doing some fun stuff with it.
Like they invited a bunch of celebrities, former athletes, stuff to do this, and now it's kind of we're going to see,
like you said, they're going to lose the casual viewer.
Yeah, the casual viewer's done. They know what the team is. But again, I'll tune into. Don't get me wrong, but as long as ESPN Plus lets me. But it'll basically be me with my notebook checking off if that's who was leaked and who got picked. I'm assuming it's going to be 29 for 29.
Probably, yeah. I would assume that Seravalli would not put out names unless he was pretty confident that that's who was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen tweets that are like, maybe this was all a ruse. That would be amazing. Honestly,
he would be tanking his credibility.
Yeah, but everyone's credibility though, because everyone kind of hopped on the train.
That's true.
There was a ton of Chris Johnston and Elliot Friedman and Pierre LeBrun tweets. So I mean, it would be everyone's.
Yeah.
But at least they would know not to take away the credibility from them because they're just reporting what they were given, and what they were given was wrong. So you kind of have to blame who gave it to them, which would be the Seattle Kraken. And that's just A, bold-faced lie, but B, also mass chaos. Yeah. Because then guess what? Max Domi. Guess what? Carey Price. I mean, it could be fun if they did something like that. But again, you already lost the viewership. How many people are going to tune in to see it later? I know it's a thin line. No, it's not all a ruse. These are probably all the real names, but we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Well, that's going to do it. But before we go, I do want to talk a little bit. You can tune out if you were here for Hockey Talk and Hockey Talk alone. But I had my first DoorDash experience today as a Dasher, which I was kind of anxious about doing it. I don't know. It's kind of weird just going up to random people's houses. And you were a delivery driver.
That's right.
So you know it. But it's funny how you can tell different establishments. Like I had 2 for a random Chinese local restaurant. I had 1 for Panera and I had 1 for Chick-fil-A. And it just further encapsulated the fact that Chick-fil-A's customer service is unparalleled to everyone. Of those 4, they were above and beyond the best to deal with. And by deal with, I mean, they had the food ready, packed nicely, and were very kind to me, even though I had no idea what I was doing. But no, it's kind of a fun experience there. I enjoy listening to podcasts, and I listened to a bunch of them today while I did that for a couple hours and made some money. So I enjoyed it, and I'm sure there's going to be some interesting stories to come from that. I did have a $1 $0 tip one that was the longest drive I had to take, and I was like, well, that's kind of crappy. But you live and you learn and you deal with it. Yeah,
it sucks when your pay is based on tips.
Yes.
But you gotta do what you gotta do, and you get it's an income source, and it can be dangerous at times. It's a little sketchy sometimes out there, but And that's probably where the anxiety really kicked in for you, just that it can be sketchy out there. But
I mean, not really, because it was like noon.
You never know, though.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring back just to the expansion thing one last time, because I just saw a headline, which is from the NHL.com. It says the Kraken expansion draft to be held tonight. That's the headline. The sub-headline, Seattle will reveal 30 selections, and it lists Giordano, Ovechkin, and Price as those being available. No one has been having the conversation of Ovechkin being available, okay? We know that that's not happening.
I mean, it would be fun, wouldn't it? I know the guys over at Caps Chirp talked about it a couple months ago. Jokingly, obviously.
Yeah.
And I know the guys over at the Soda Pod did last week. So, I mean, it's a fun little experiment. And I think if Seattle did it, that would just mean Ron Francis has the biggest cojones in the GM's pool. And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, you're not going to get him to sign, but it'd be.
Hey, you have the cap space.
You do have the cap. Judging by everyone else.
Hey, Obi, how's $20 million for 1 year sound?
Oh, shit. Max chaos, man.
And then just trade him back to Washington
for all of
us then and get 2 first-round picks or something. I don't know. Just choose chaos, choose violence if you're Ron Francis.
They really could have, man. They really could have.
Yeah, well, unfortunately they didn't. And unfortunately, that is the end of this episode of The Tip of the Iceberg. Thank you to everybody who tuned in live last night during the NHL expansion draft on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And thank you to everybody that listened back to the podcast version. The shout outs and call outs that we just did will be live on, not live, but on YouTube in video format. So definitely check out our YouTube page at Tip of the Iceberg Podcast. But that's going to do it for this episode. Have a good weekend, Pens fans.